So as Emily and I covered with Dr. Trita Parsi yesterday, there have been an extraordinary series of events in the Middle East over the course of a very short period of time. Israel first assassinated a top Hezbollah commander in Beirut, in the capital of Lebanon. And then they, it appears, assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, who was in Tehran, so in the Iranian capital, and he was the political head of Hamas. Iran, of course, threatening retaliation. You can only imagine what we would do if there was an assassination in Washington, D.C., how we would respond. And we are also dealing with the fallout of those ceasefire negotiations because Haniyeh was one of the key figures in Hamas who was actually pushing for a deal against, Yahya Sinwar and some of the other more hardline Hamas members. So Israel has effectively assassinated the top negotiator in those ceasefire negotiations. Secretary of State Tony Blinken was asked about exactly what this will mean going forward for those negotiations. Let's take a listen.
Haniyeh was involved in ceasefire talks in Gaza. What impact is his death going to have?
Well, of course, I've seen the reports, and what I can tell you is this. First, this is something we were not aware of or involved in. It's very hard to speculate, and I've learned over many years never to speculate on the impact one event may have on something else. So I can't tell you.
So, Saagar, interested for your reaction. I mean, a couple things that are noteworthy there. Obviously, he's claiming, I don't know what this will mean. Like, obviously, this is going to be a problem. And it's entirely consistent with the track record of Bibi Netanyahu doing everything he can to blow up these negotiations at literally every point. So let's put that aside. The other thing he claims there is that the U.S. had no idea. That may be true. I don't know. But it also may not be true because remember, Bibi Netanyahu was in town last week. These were both very sophisticated operations, so raised a lot of questions. Hey, was the CIA involved in helping to plan this? I can tell you people in the region are very skeptical that the U.S. had no idea, had nothing to do with this.
Well, I'm not sure which, is more terrifying, that we knew or that we didn't know. If we did know and then we are lying about it and then yet still bearing the cost, or if we didn't know and then that we're somebody who's backing to the hilt. So in a certain sense, it doesn't really matter, which one it was because we're going to bear the brunt of that no matter what. That was very evident with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin being asked about this. Let's take a listen.
If Israel is attacked, we certainly will help defend Israel. You saw us do that in April. You can expect to see us do that again. But we don't want to see any of that happen. We're going to work hard to make sure that we're doing things to help take the temperature down and address issues through diplomatic means.
You're in it now, folks, whether you like it or not.
That's right.
And that's, one of those things people were like, what, are you not saying that he shouldn't have been killed? I'm like, well, let's just say this. It's kind of a statement, right? He's been sitting in Qatar, so if you want to kill him, why didn't you kill him in Qatar? If he's on a plane, why didn't you blow his plane out of the sky? I mean, I think killing somebody in the presidential complex on the first day of the reign of the Iranian president, that was a very coordinated statement, by the Israelis, just to the level of penetration they have, their technology, the lack of Iranian missile defense. There's a whole host of military things, but politically, it's like a hey, we're not afraid of you, and in a certain sense, like shouldn't be, right? Because America is the one that is now underwriting all of this. Now, if they had to stand on their own, it'd be a whole other story, wouldn't it? Because didn't you and Ryan cover this? I mean, Hezbollah missiles penetrated the Iron Dome. Are we all just going to ignore that? That was like 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
And here, this attack that just happened where 12 people were killed. Now, I don't know, could be Hezbollah, whatever. Regardless, something went wrong, I think, and that should kind of shake people in Israel to their core. But they don't seem to be afraid because they think America is going to bail them out. And increasingly, that just seems like the correct assumption. And now here's who is running this country. Is it Blinken? Is it Lloyd Austin? Who's making the security guarantees? Is Joe Biden even on the phone here? One of the things we've learned electorally is Joe Biden wouldn't call people back. Sean Fain apparently requested a phone call with him. Biden didn't call him.
Yep.
Are you calling Bibi? Like, who's running this stuff, dude? It's terrifying.
Fantastic question.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic and very legitimate question. We haven't heard a peep.
Yeah, he hasn't said anything.
Joe Biden about any of this.
Yeah.
Not that would really allay the concerns. Let's be clear about who is really running things behind the scenes. I mean, unfortunately, I think Biden mostly has been running the Israel policy, which is part of why it has been so utterly dreadful and destructive, both to the U.S., to Israel, and first and foremost, to Palestinians. This type of potentially escalatory spiral and true chaos and true breakout of a massive regional war is so predictable and has been completely predictable from the beginning, and was a key part of why people like us have been pushing for a ceasefire for so long, because the longer the conflict goes on, the more you have a risk of exactly this type of dangerous chaos unfolding. So it is unconscionable to me that our Secretary of Defense comes right out and of course we'll join the hostilities. Of course we'll have Israel's back, because make no mistake about it, Iran is already saying they're going to retaliate. Hezbollah, to your point, Saagar, this is a formidable foe. They have Jeremy Scahill over at Dropsite News. We used this in the show yesterday. He interviewed a top scholar of Hezbollah who has studied them and their methods and their tactics and who they are and how many fighters they have. They have somewhere around 100,000 fighters, very different from Hamas. They have very sophisticated weaponry. And he says if they entered a full-scale war, Israel versus Hezbollah, it could be so devastating that it could lead to, this is his words, the unraveling of the Israeli state.
No question, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying that's what would happen. I asked Dr. Parsi about this, and he said the same. He said, I'm not saying that's what would happen, but many analysts and scholars believe that is the level of destruction that we're talking about that would be on the table. Let's put this next piece up on the screen from the Financial Times. Headline here, assassinated the arch enemies of Israel, killed in twin strikes. It also is not lost on me that these dual assassinations come as Israel was facing a massive domestic political crisis, which we covered here on the show earlier this week. Members of the Knesset joining up with right-wing militia mob to storm two separate Israeli bases because they were upset about soldiers being prosecuted for the gang rape of Palestinians, or literally rioting to protect soldiers' right to gang rape Palestinian detainees that were being held there. So this was a moment of massive political crisis for Bibi Netanyahu. You can bet that all political factions in the country are united behind the efficacy and the execution of these two assassinations. And then the other way it serves Bibi is it once again drags us in and expands and extends the conflict, kills the ceasefire negotiations, as I said, which he has never wanted to go forward with. And just to back up what I was saying about that, from the Financial Times, the piece we just had up on the screen, they write, Haniya's killing risks the failure of the already stalled indirect negotiations between Israel and Hamas. Quote, he was one of the ones pushing for a deal and compromise, and because of his stature, he was able to speak to the guys in Gaza in a more convincing way than other guys, according to an Arab diplomat. While there were others from Hamas involved in the negotiations, you've lost a big voice who was influential and could have a strong say internally within Hamas and was for a deal. The Qatari prime minister also said that the killing would endanger the talks. Quote, how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates the negotiator on the other side? So Dr. Parsi's analysis, Saagar, was that part of the motivation here, too, may be to try to box in Kamala Harris, where there's a question mark about how she would approach this conflict and whether it could be different from Joe Biden. But if you drag us into some frickin' regional war, then she is stuck pursuing the same failed strategy of a Joe Biden.
Well, it would be smart. That's exactly what I would do. You box him in, and then she's already uttered the shibboleth of American politics. Israel has a right
to defend itself.
Yeah, that's where.
Does Iran?
It's like something you must repeat over and over and over again to become president. You have to say it 3 times and turn around, and that's what makes you American president. Let's put this up there on the screen. C6, please. This is the terrifying stuff that's happening, again, with no president on the watch. The Department of State has now raised its Lebanon travel advisory to, quote, do not travel, recommending that U.S. citizens enroll to receive alerts. You also have multiple domestic airlines here in the United States canceling their flights to Israel, as evidenced by the fact that they are afraid of Hezbollah rockets. So all of the ingredients for a massive conflagration are there. Basically, Biden is asleep at the wheel. This might be one of the most dangerous times in the international system, because America is bogged down in Ukraine. Just people, it doesn't even make the news that we just shipped a bunch of F-16s to Ukraine yesterday with advanced weaponry, which takes forever to manufacture here in America. That's cool. If we got a shortage, it'll be all right. We have 3,500 troops in Iraq and Syria, some who have already been attacked as a result of this very recently. America actually had an airstrike in Iraq just 2 days ago, trying to take down somebody before they launched an attack on U.S. soldiers. We got this Iran-Israel situation. Secretary of Defense says we're ready to roll. So we got two-front war, basically, on the brink right now. Who knows what the hell's going on in East Asia? Could be good, you know?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I'll say, you can put C4 up on the screen in terms of the likely Iranian response. This is from the Supreme Leader Khamenei. Following this bitter, tragic event, which has taken place within the borders of the Islamic Republic, it is our duty to take revenge. And as we speak, I just saw a Reuters report that Iran and their proxies are meeting to discuss retaliation. Representatives of Iran's Palestinian allies, Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, as well as Yemen's Tehran-backed Houthi movement, Lebanon's Hezbollah, and Iraqi resistance groups are all attending this meeting in Tehran. So we're all watching and waiting to see what happens next, but make no mistake, this is a very dangerous situation.
Yeah, and that president, it was his very first day on the job. So what do all presidents do whenever something happens in your hometown? You have to appear
You gotta show strength.
What do you
strength.
think? It doesn't take a genius. Like, they have politics just like we have politics. Yes, I understand it's a dictatorship, etc. Still a big-ass country with a big population. You still have to manage and think about, you know, what the populace is thinking and how to maintain your grip on power. He's got internal, you know, fights that he has to have with the IRGC, who just had somebody blown up in their own headquarters. Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out which way that the domestic politics of each country is going to push them towards. It's only ours, apparently, where our domestic politics doesn't matter.
It's just governed by these other, by Israel in particular. But no, to your point, he was elected, the new Iranian president, as a relative moderate, which on the one hand, you can say, okay, well, maybe he'll be more interested in de-escalation. And the Iranians have actually, you know, the previous retaliation was closely calculated to show strength, but hopefully not be escalatory, you know, in terms of making sure that there were no massive, like, civilian deaths or anything like that. So, however, you also have a dynamic where you can imagine here, if someone is elected as kind of like a dove, then you got to beat the rap that you're going to be too soft in a situation like this. So in any case, we'll see how this all unfolds.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.